Hi, it's Paul Gunson here from Family Money Trees over in the UK, England. I've started a series under an umbrella called ARC, which is Are You Ready for Change? And given our current situation with what's going on in the coronavirus environment at the moment, I think most people can sense that change is afoot, to English expression. What I've done today is I've invited a guest along, somebody who, as I believe, an insight into perhaps some of the things people may be interested in, particularly small businesses who may be facing unemployment, may be facing shutdown, and might be even looking for an alternative way to generate income, which is part of my Family Money Trees business anyway, because we look at things such as debt, showing people how they can get involved in sort of multi-level marketing areas where they can generate extra income. But I think this guest today, I'm going to introduce him now, is Dwight James from Los Angeles. Welcome, James.
Hey,
Welcome, Dwight, sorry. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you, Paul?
Doing good. I don't know whether you heard, but I lost my wife 3 weeks ago to coronavirus.
Oh,
So I've been impacted, obviously, very
right.
personally on this note. But I wanted to get the message out because I think we're facing a change, and I believe that change is going to be financial one. I think we're heading for a new military system. But what I'd like to ask you from a US position, given the recent statement from President Trump regarding the new debt he's just took on 2.2 trillion to try and help businesses, can I just ask you, what do you think that impact might be on businesses, and maybe yourself give some insight into what you're doing as a business owner and as a coach. I know, like me, you've worked in the precious metals industry, which I do, and just give us your perspective. Let's hear what the US has got to say.
Well, one of the things that as you look, where's this money going? So here, you have the Republicans and Democrats, and theoretically, the Democrats are asking for most of the money to go to the working man, because basically what's happened here is the two major cities in the country, and every state has begun to shut down everything, basically everything but retail stores, retail food stores, and so people are out of work. If I work at a hardware store and I'm out of work, it's closed, and most businesses are closed, most hotels, most everything, and even if they're open, people are not on the street doing anything. So people can't make money. They're sitting at home without income. So that's why they did that $2 trillion deal. Supposed to get, but it's not much money. Most of that money, oddly enough, have gone to the most common players. Most of the money, a lot of it is going to go to people and help them, but it's only $1,200 a person. So if I'm a single guy and I work at a car dealership and they just shut me down, I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my, even if it's just my wife, I got $2,400 that's supposed to get me through. We've already been shut down about 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We're going on 3 weeks now. We're into a situation where people are going to start to really feel it. Now, that money that we don't have in America that they just gave away, and the several $1.2 trillion that they gave away to the stock market a week before, I don't understand where all this is coming from, but I know the average person is suffering the most, as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And that money is a debt and I have 5 children, that my 5 children and their children will still be paying, if it's even possible to ever pay it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a very similar situation over here in the UK. We've got, currency stimulus, etc., and they've promised us all kinds of bits. And I'm fortunate; I still work in healthcare, so I'm still frontline. But I have some income coming in. But even I now, with health conditions, are subject to this 12-week shutdown. Now, I know I'm going to survive. I was fortunate to see this coming because of what I do in relation to prepping anyway.
Mhm.
So I kind of made sure I had 3 to 6 months supply of food, etc. Anyway, but here's the thing, and something I'd like to ask you in related to precious metals. Obviously, I see helping people to eliminate their debt is a crucial thing, and helping people to increase their potential wealth. I personally see
Yes.
cryptocurrency, gold and silver, as perhaps being an option for people while they've got this slight holiday. No, I wouldn't call it a holiday. It's not a holiday. It's a shutdown. But having that little bit of extra cash, what would you recommend to people to do with it? You know, if they have got some money in the bank when they're getting 0% interest.
Exactly. Right. Well,
What would
work with
what would
this.
you offer people?
Well, I would say, well, obviously, I've been in gold and silver since 1988, so I would lean heavily in that direction, only because you have more control. One of the things that are phenomenal about gold, at least in the U.S., I don't know how they handle it in the U.K., but here everything transfers privately, and you can use if you buy gold or silver, primarily gold. The world loves gold. If you can take that gold and you can go anywhere in the world, and it has a value that doesn't have to go through another exchange. Somebody will look at that gold, say it has this value here, and you can get cash for it. In the United States, it travels without reporting to the government. When you go in and liquidate gold, they don't take a social security number and send you a tax form for it or any of that. It's just exchange, a
Yeah.
monetary exchange for cash. So I would advise that. And gold is up about 30 or 40% this year. I haven't looked recently, but I know it's up significantly.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned in the previous conversation, Dwight, that the stock market again is an area that people can take a very narrow, short-term position in.
Absolutely.
Looking, if people have got money in banks that are not really generating any income for them on the short term, maybe to look at, getting educated in trading,
Absolutely.
taking advantage of that. Because my concern as a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, once Nixon took, the US off the gold standard in 1971, he
Right.
basically created the ability to just print and print. And every elected president since has to double the money that the country borrows just to keep in power. And, that's not changed, and that's never going to change. So I do see a complete global crash. And some people say, oh, you're a bit of an alarmist, but I'm not. I'm a realist. That's why I invest heavily in precious metals and why I deal in crypto. So let me ask you the questions. Where do you see the crypto scene now? Because I think everybody is still not quite got it yet. What are your
Right.
thoughts on it?
It's okay. So that's kind of an anomaly, something that the markets didn't expect. That was something the banking system and the markets didn't expect to come along, because you have to realize what this happened in 2009 is when
2008.
crypto started, and all of a sudden, all of these people are using crypto, and excuse me, they are doing everything they can to find out how to control it. How can we control this? Because we have control of everything else, but we don't have control of crypto. And then there's all these different cryptos that come along. So the blockchain was designed so that people could have transparency for that financial system.
Mhm.
And everyone could see what was happening with it. That's the opposite of what the banking system wants.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I believe that crypto as an alternative is also a really good thing.
I think that there are two potential issues here. I do think this is all by design, and I'll stand by that. I think it's all man-made. I think it's all a way of manipulating. I come across as a person who understands how these things work, and what I'm concerned about is average Joe, average Mary, who just don't understand the system, don't understand what currency and money is all about. They just go to work. Now they can't go to work. I mean, if you'd have asked me 4 weeks ago that we'd be facing what we're now facing today, I wouldn't have believed that I'd have called you a complete crackpot.
How could anybody think that?
Yeah, but here we are. Now, my thoughts are that this is a way, traditionally, whenever there's an economy crash, one of three things happens. One, we either default, which we've seen countries lately default. Greece has defaulted, Ireland's defaulted, Venezuela's defaulted. We could arguably say that Italy is about to, Germany, etc. And even President Obama, when he was in office, said we can't even afford to pay the interest on our debt, let alone the debt. Now, I don't know about you, Dwight, but if you ran your budget like the government's running their economy budget, I'm afraid you'd
absolutely be bankrupt already. It would be done.
Not to be bankrupt, but you'd have your bags packed and you'd be out the house. But here's the thing. What is going to replace where we are? I think one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to go to war, which is traditional, because that's one way of creating a new economy, because we get the war machine work and everybody gets work, everyone gets to work, everybody goes to war. We kill a couple of 100 million people and we all start again. Or something happens that intervenes. Now, some people might say, it's a God thing. It's the flood or the pandemic, or it's been man-made. Now, there's my theory. If this was man-made, it's going to wipe out the stock market. It's going to give the government the opportunity to start again, and they're not going to be blamed because they're going to use this COVID-19 as a potential. Well, we couldn't see this. We didn't see this coming.
Well, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, because there's a possibility you might have a reset, but the challenge I have with it being a coordinated reset is that the whole world is involved. And I can tell you the Chinese and the Americans are not going to walk hand in hand and down the street and skip. So it is a challenge with that. And I've always said that when we have people that talk about what the Illuminati, the people in the background making, I said, well, what about the Chinese? Because whenever they mention people, the Chinese are never in it. They're the second largest economy in the world. So I would say what you said about the coronavirus, I think that one of two things have happened. It may be man-made. I just saw a clip of a Chinese movie that was made several years ago that talks literally about the coronavirus and the pandemic and what it does to you. And this was made many years ago. Mm-hmm. And so obviously this was on the shelf somewhere. Now, this may be by accident, and they're just taking advantage and having this opportunity to get this done. Oh, here's where we could do something.
Yeah.
Or, they were caught flat-footed, truly. And they will make an opportunity of it. Oh, here's where we can do this now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 100%. I also mentioned in a previous podcast that Bill Gates in 2015 actually got up on a TEDx presentation and said there was a pandemic coming in the year 2020, and actually states the year. And that's free for everyone to go and research. So, we're not making this stuff up, guys. Go and do the research.
But it also happens. It also happens all the time. We always have a pandemic. That's a general term.
Yeah.
We always have these. But I'll tell you what, the way the world is treating this, and I think that we have to really wonder. Everybody's doing the same thing as quickly as they can. Now, Germany seems to have handled this the best so far of the large countries, I think, because they have the fewest, the pinned down, and their economy seems to be still running. They seem to have handled it. I'm just watching. This is something none of us have ever seen before, even in history. I guess the Black Plague may have had a similar effect, but economies didn't run the way they run now at that time. So this is a unique time because we're all connected. You talked about having a war. And nowadays, yeah, you can have what the U.S. calls a little war in a small country and keep the people working because they have to work in factories. But the factory work is gone. You have to look. Our economy is changing, and this might be linked in some way. And I don't know that it's purposeful, but on one hand, it will be purposeful. But we're moving from an economy that is dependent upon physical labor from the people to an economy that is computerized and automated and robotic. And they don't need all these workers working in factories. You're not going to have a World War II type situation anymore.
No.
I mean, you got cars driving themselves, trucks driving themselves. Those jobs in 10 years, those jobs are not going to exist. What are you going to do with all these people?
I agree with you, Chase, and I think just in kind of trying to, put some sort of hope and best wishes out there, I think we have to take this change now as a way to help people understand that what was traditional 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 is now different. And that's why I think, home-based businesses, I mean, the home-based business has been massively promoted now. And I have some solutions, and I'm sure you will have some. You're talking about people getting educated and understanding how trading works and,
yes.
The value of precious metals. So I want to get a clear message, and I'm sure you may echo this, is people have got to get educated in how to find an alternative to what they did prior to COVID-19. Because now we are now being forced to stay at home. We are now being encouraged to work from home. So what better way and what better hope of a message can we now give to people and say, find a home-based business that will generate income? And there's thousands of them, whether it's beauty products, whether it's pills and lotions. I'm talking debt management, you're talking trading, for businesses who might not be able to go forward with their business for the next 3 months, 6 months. But if people can educate themselves, give themselves something to hope. One of the best things we can do right now is get educated. Get educated, get educated, get educated. How can I generate income? Who's out there that's offering a solution? I'm offering a solution, and I know, Dwight, you're offering solutions.
Yes.
So just as a sort of wrap up, if I can, Dwight, how can people get hold of you? How can people find out what you know, what information you have, and how to maybe get that sense of hope and get that sense of, I can go forward with this?
Well, yeah, my website is successwithhelp.com. So it's successwithhelp.com. Or dwightjames.com. They both go to the same place. But the main way for them to look at this. So I'm going to shift this a little bit because we know that this is a dark time. But remember, there is no dark without light. Okay, so there's the light side of this too, the opportunity side. And that opportunity side is, in any change in society of major course, there's a lot of opportunity. And you just said it. When you have to be at home, you're locked down. How can you make money? How are you going to change what you do so that you can make this a valuable time? I'll give you an example. My son is taking piano classes. Now, most of the music schools, and he's only 5, so these are all little kids, and they shut down the pandemic. His school did not. His class did. What they did is they moved to Zoom, the platform that lets you share video with multiple people on there. You can have 1,000 people, or you can have 5. And they moved to that platform. and they gave the class anyway. So all the students could see each other, and the teacher and they still made money doing the same thing in a different way.
Absolutely.
And that also creates more clients with them because they're locked into being in my small area. But now if they think about it, how many areas they can go anywhere in the world and teach the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely incredible example, and thanks for sharing that. Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring about is obviously debt relief, which is my business, Family Money Trees, and the principle behind that is to use what you've got. The other thing that I would urgently, and I'd ask your opinion on that, is to make sure that especially if you've got young children, that you have vital supplies. If you've got any extra money right now, don't go out panic buying, but just go and be sensible. Get what you need. Make sure you've got a good, steady, balanced diet for your children, plenty of water. And look at, even, I talk with people who started growing their own food. And, I'm looking at growing potatoes and strawberries because the UK is great for strawberries. Potatoes will grow pretty much anywhere. So even things like that. So anyone who's got businesses that understand how to grow food in small home, they're going to be the kind of guests I bring onto this show because I think, yeah.
Let me ask you a question because I'm sitting here thinking about this, and most people are going to be paying rent or paying a mortgage. They're going to have a car payment and other credit card payments, all these things that they suddenly, without notice, have been cut off from the source of being able to keep those going. And now what do they do to offset that? And you're talking about getting rid of debt. So the guy that's sitting home in debt up to his neck is in trouble right now. The guy that uses the system that you're talking about is sitting home and waiting to see what happens and looking for the opportunity because he's debt free. How does that work for a person to be able to do that? And in this scenario, what would you say they should focus on first to try to get themselves debt free? I know you have a company that can help them do that. What can they do to help themselves?
Well, I'll give you an example. My daughter works, and she's a nursery nurse in young children up to the age of 4. Now, she's just a practical example. I don't quite know how it will work in the US, but I think it'll be similar. She's now been given a 3 months mortgage break. So she's now got it
here too.
So she's now been given £1,500 that she doesn't have to pay over the next 3 months. Now, I'll tell you what I would do with that. I would certainly go out and make sure I stocked up with, quite a bit of food, priority, because if you're out of work, but if you're paying a mortgage or a debt, a car loan, phone them up. I phoned one of my debtors and I explained that I just lost my wife. I just lost 50% of my income. And you know what they did? They wrote off a credit card. They said, what we'll do is we'll and they even reimbursed me £200 last payment. What they did then is they wrote it off, stopped the interest, and said, right, you can pay this back £1 a month. Now I know that exists. So I've done it. I've proved it. I know it works. I have some other ways in which you can write off debt legally, and I have some ways where you can kind of schedule finance, move your finances around. So really, it depends on which club you sit in. Are you still getting an income? Do you still have a business that generates income, or are you like perhaps most people? You're out of work, you're up to your eyes in debt, and you've got nowhere to go. So they're the people I want to reach, and I'm pretty certain you're looking more on the sort of small business. How do we keep business going? Because without commerce, the whole wheel grinds anyway to a stop.
Yes, but what you just said made a lot of sense about, because I hadn't thought about that. That's one of those things when you're looking for opportunity that comes up. But wait a minute, they just gave you 3 months. What are you going to do with this extra cash? And if you're even the guy that's sitting at home that was going paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. Actually, most companies have given some kind of severance. They're going to get, in the US, they're going to get a check from the government that can be used. There's a few things that are happening. What are you going to do with that money? And are you going to look for, you got a lot of time on your hands. In my case, you have a lot of time on your hands and you're going to have a bit of money. And so what are you going to do with that? Are you going to make an opportunity of this and look for how you can generate money? Because obviously it's going to have to be online, but that's just a way of doing it. Yeah. What are you going to do and how are you going to do it? That's what I help people find out. How to develop a business, how to get that business so that if they have a business, how can they change the process so it can fit this now, and how can they grow it? But my biggest thing is, I believe people can work a lot less and make a lot more money.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you've talked about how trading can do that. I also, one of my other business, which is the gold and the gold and silver, is that let's say my daughter now of that £1,500 was to buy £500 worth of gold, and then there is this global reset, and the price of gold goes up by 10. She's just made £5,000 out of £500. Now that might be 6 months, it might be 12 months, it might be 2 years, but what would be the alternative? The alternative is she still goes out and works 40 hours a week, So now the same can be said about trading. So just on the kind of the arc theory, I do believe, and I'll ask you in sort of closing remarks, going back to the biblical story of the ark, Noah's flood, etc. Here was a guy who got instructed to do something that was way, way, way out there. He starts to build an ark. He tells them that there's a flood coming.
Yes.
And they all mock him. They all scorn him. And then it starts to rain. And we know the rest of the story. So here's my thing. They were warned.
Yes.
They were warned. And I'll say that again in case anyone didn't hear that. They were warned. You and I today have kind of give out that warning again. Look for an opportunity out of this. Don't look for the doom and gloom. Let's create hope. Let's inspire people. Let's show people who may be panicking, maybe struggling, maybe, mental health hasn't even been talked about really, but I'm a big mental health advocate. Let's help people find solutions to this problem. Let's get them on the ark. Let's get them on board. Show them what they can do. So just finally, your sort of comments on that.
Well, you put me in mind of what's happening without this pandemic. What you just said was already happening. I talked about it a little bit when I said automation. But let me tell you, 40% of the jobs on this planet over the next 10 years are projected to be gone and given to robots and automation. So truck driving, which is in the United States, is one of the biggest jobs that people work. Trucks are driving themselves. They have trucks on the street right now driving autonomously, and that's only going to get a lot better. They're testing it. It's working. And let me remember, cell phones, our smartphones, that started in 2007 with the iPhone as we know it. And look where they are now. They were going to replace our computers. And that was just not, if you look back at 2017, they were just as sophisticated as they are now. So imagine what's going to happen with all the automation on all these different jobs, because you can't even talk to a person on the phone anymore. What are you going to do to make a living when your job is gone? That's the warning. That's the warning right now. It's going to happen. Pandemic is here. You see what it's like. It's going to happen slower, but it's going to happen. It's coming.
Thanks very much for that, Dwight. And what I'd like to do now is wrap this up by, first of all, thanking you for coming on, my friend. You've certainly given me some food for thought, and we're saying the same message, slight different angles, but we're seeing the same story. We're seeing the same problem, and perhaps we've even got some of the same kind of solutions. So what I'd just like to do is just once again thank you and say goodbye to you, and let's hope
successwithhelp.com.
Yeah, let's see what we can do out there to help people.
I think
Thank you very much for your time, Dwight. Great.
I appreciate you having me on.
Great talking to you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.